In this session, I'm going to talk and invite you to ask questions and we can have discussion about a topic which I call ground zero. So have you heard this term before? Ground zero?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Kinda.
Yeah.
9/11.
Yeah, 9/11. The Twin Towers collapsed, and when it was all flat, they called it ground zero. What I'm going to discuss is non-negative. But when you go to ground zero, it's you have to let go of everything. You have to let go of everything. Everything that you cling to, even your life, you have to let go. And we cling to so many things. But in the Dharma practice, we have to go to ground zero. And in the highest yoga tantra, and especially in Kalachakra, there are some different presentations about, or different perspectives about ground zero. So I want to talk about them. And I'll have a pause after each one, and if you want you can ask questions or share your understanding. So the three are, the first one is emptiness. Emptiness of inherent existence, which many of you have already studied, but we can still talk about it because some of the questions that I've been asked suggest that it could do just a little bit of more thinking. The second one is clear light mind. And I think that some of you would appreciate a little bit more presentation, teaching about that. This is in the meditation before dinner, I was mentioning fundamental mind. So clear light is talking about that. So that's the second topic. And the third topic is a particular Kalachakra term, space particles. Space particles. And His Holiness says that space particles are quantized phenomena, which means they're quantum particles. So that's the third one we'll also talk about. And maybe if we have time, we'll also talk about empty form. So there's different points. So let's begin with emptiness. So the first thing is to talk about dependent origination. Dependent origination.
התהוות תלויה.
Dependent arising or dependent?
Yeah, you can also say dependent arising. I think they have slightly different terms in Tibetan, but they mean the same thing. So origination means where something comes from, where it originates. What is its origin? And dependent means its origin is depending on other things. And according to the Prasangika school of Madhyamika, which is the most subtle, or everything okay? Okay. It's the most subtle level of the Buddhist philosophy. According to that, I'm sorry, I've forgotten where I was.
Dependent. I think everything is dependent arising.
Yeah, everything is dependent arising. Everything is dependent arising.
According to Prasangika.
And everything is empty of inherent existence. So then, I mean, this is, for some of you, that you already completely understand this. At least intellectually. But there may be some of you who are not so familiar, so I will explain it. First of all, everything that is produced depends on its own causes and conditions. We could say in general, its own causes. Everything that is produced. So this carpet is produced. What are the causes of the carpet? There are many threads going in both directions, and there's some maybe wool or some material which is coming through. And it's caused, it's produced in a factory by some human beings. And then the materials which are used are produced either from natural sources, such as the wool from the sheep or whatever, or synthetic, some threads which are produced maybe from petrochemicals. So when we look at the causes of this carpet, it could go back a long way. The causes are very many. But the human beings and the machines which created it are also part of the causes. Now, at what point does it become a carpet? When all the causes have come together, there's a carpet. The causes are not the carpet, but when they come together, there is a carpet. If one of the causes is missing, such as the machine that makes it, or the human who operates the machine, or some of the material, there's no carpet. So, in that respect, all the causes and conditions have to be correct for this particular thing to happen. It's the same for oneself. When a human being is created, there is the seed from the mother, the seed from the father, and there's the consciousness from the previous life. These three need to come together. If one of them is missing, there's no human being. Now, when we say that the human being is a dependent origination, it means when the causes come together, it happens. It's a human being. When we understand that, we're not looking at a human being as something existing independently. Okay. We can say this definitely is a dependent origination. It originates depending on its own causes. Otherwise, it doesn't originate. Okay? Even the human being who is sitting here now depended on many more things than those three. We depended on food, we depended on medicines sometimes to keep us alive, we depended on our education so that our mind is able to understand these things, and many, many things. We depended on our clothes.
Billions of things.
Billions of things. If some of those were taken away, maybe we would still exist, actually. So, the fundamental ones, definitely food and drink, for sure.
And air.
And air, good one, yeah, thank you. I forgot that. But still, some essentials and some optional ones. But the essential ones, if you take one of them away, such as air, there's no human being, we just die. This is the first kind of dependent origination. The second one is depending on parts. Depending on parts. So this microphone is a good example. This microphone depends, I don't know much about it, but it depends on many parts inside here.
Can you take it a little bit far from me?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Little bit.
Okay, so it depends on many parts which are inside the microphone, and if one of those parts is missing, it won't work. Now, when the parts come together, you have a collection of the parts, and that collection you can call a microphone. But none of those parts is a microphone. within those parts you cannot find a microphone. When the collection comes together, you have something which functions as a microphone. But to know it as a microphone, it depends on the mind which recognizes it. Okay. But it is empty of being a microphone from its own side. It only exists as a microphone when the parts come together and when we use it as a microphone or know it to be a microphone.
That's it.
I just stopped it.
Karma.
Okay.
It depends on listening as well.
Depends on the right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you put it together.
In this retreat.
No, someone shooking, don't.
אל תיכנסי לזה.
ניסויים מושלמים.
Let's just explore a little bit more about the relationship of the parts to the whole. The whole, which means the whole thing, cannot be a whole without the parts. But this cannot be a part of a microphone without the whole. So the parts and the whole are interdependent. Okay? I should have said there's something similar with the carpet. To be a part of the carpet, each of those parts depends on the carpet. Even to be a cause of the carpet, the machine which makes the carpet depends on the carpet which it will produce. Otherwise, it's not a carpet machine. The person who operates the machine, who makes the carpet, that person we can call a carpet maker. That person cannot be a carpet maker without a carpet, and so forth. So the causes depend on the result, as well as the result depending on the causes. So the results and the cause are interdependent. That is quite something to think about. It means everything is interdependent. Take a parent and a child. Before the child is born, the parent is not a parent. It is a woman or a man, but it is not a parent. The moment the child is born, that person becomes a parent. And then afterwards everybody looks at that person and thinks, oh, it's a parent, it's a mother, it's a father. They think that mother or father is in there, especially the child. When the child goes to the mother or father, they think it's inherently mother or father. But it's not. It's a dependent origination. The same with the child. We call the child a son or a daughter. You cannot be a son or a daughter without a parent. You cannot be a child without a parent. Everything is a dependent origination. Everything depends on something else, or maybe many other things. Nothing exists without depending. Finally, the role of the mind. It's the mind which gives the name, carpet, microphone, child, parent, and so forth. But by giving the name, it's also giving the identity. It's actually bringing that thing to be what it is. You see, you might think, oh, well, whether I call it a carpet or not, it's still what it is. But if a fly comes in and lands there, is that a carpet for the fly? No. A fly doesn't have the carpet in its... not just vocabulary, it doesn't have a carpet in its world. In its world it has landing places. And some of them are soft, some of them are hard. It has something like that, but it doesn't have carpet. And so, objectively, it is not a carpet. That is dependent on the mind which knows it to be a carpet. And most humans in this world today would know it is a carpet, and therefore it's true, conventionally true for humans that this is a carpet. It's conventionally true for modern humans that this is a microphone. But if you went back 200 years and somebody came in the room, what on earth is that? They would have no idea. So again, it's dependent on being a human being of this time, that this is a microphone. Otherwise, it's not a microphone. Microphone doesn't exist for somebody 200 years ago. The more you explore this is not a mind game. This is about understanding how we relate to reality. We relate to reality by giving things a kind of existence which they do not possess. We think everything exists inherently according to what the identity we give it. We think this is inherently a microphone. This is inherently a carpet. We think that. We can't help it. Our mind is conditioned to think like that. That is what we call ignorance, because it is not true. It is not true. This is not inherently a carpet, and this is not inherently a microphone. But we think like that. When you went to dinner, whatever you had, if you had some soup, you thought, oh, this is soup. You didn't think, this is cold soup.
Did you taste it and you see that it was
You think soup is there.
You knew.
I
I knew it's a cold
yesterday
soup.
That's why I didn't take it. Sorry.
Emptiness
And
jokes.
so, and everything like that. The whole of the dinner was made up of things which we thought existed out there, the way our mind tells
We
us.
had dinner?
Inherently existing as dinner. What is dinner? Yeah, okay. So it goes on like that. So this is what the meaning of emptiness. Emptiness simply means the way things actually are. It doesn't mean they don't exist. They do exist, but they exist as dependent origination. Dependent origination means emptiness. Emptiness means dependent origination. If you can stay with that, then you will not think emptiness means nothing. There's a big danger that we think emptiness means non-existent or nothing. That is called over-negating. It means denying too much. And there's a danger. If we start to do that, then we get into a dualistic understanding of reality. This microphone is a microphone, but at the same time it is emptiness. Its ultimate nature is emptiness, and it's manifesting as a microphone. This carpet is emptiness, but it's also appearing as a carpet. So there's called two truths: ultimate truth, which is emptiness, and relative truth or conventional truth, which is what is appearing. And everything exists with these two natures. But because our mind is still unenlightened, we can't see those two natures simultaneously. If we think of one, we forget the other. If we think of the other, we forget the one. It's like that. Even when you're even an advanced meditator and you directly realize emptiness in your meditation, when you're meditating on emptiness, there's no appearance except emptiness, which is a mere absence. It's like, it's a bit like space. But when you wake up from your meditation, you will see a carpet or a microphone. And they still seem to exist by themselves, but because of your meditation on emptiness, you know it's not true. So at least you got to that stage. But it's only when you're fully enlightened that you will see it in both relative aspect and ultimate aspect simultaneously. That's how the Buddhists experience reality. Conventional or relative truth and ultimate truth simultaneously, non-dual. We can't even imagine what that's like, because it's beyond imagination. It's completely beyond anything we can conceive or imagine. We can only know that from experience, and that experience comes through long practice. Okay. So everything has the nature of emptiness. So we can say emptiness is the ground zero of reality. It's when everything is taken away, all appearances, the nature of things is emptiness, which is a mere absence. The mere absence is hard to understand. Imagine that you drive your car to go shopping, and you go and do the shopping, and you fill your bags with heavy goods, and you come back, and the car's disappeared. You expected to see the car there, and it's not there. At that moment, your mind goes. That is the experience of emptiness of car. Okay? When you realize emptiness of inherent existence, it will be like that. Why? Because we 100% expect to see inherent existence. But when we realize that it's not there, it's a big shock. And at that point, the mind becomes completely open. Completely open. There's no content. There's nothing. There's just a space where we expected to find something. So emptiness is a challenge to this expectation that there's always something. There's no thingness in anything. There's an appearance based on causes, parts, valid basis, yes, but there is nothing inherently there at all. That is emptiness. Okay. Now the second one, clear light. You see that each topic is a big one. Does anybody need to ask a question about emptiness?
Where do you put your groceries?
I can't hear.
Where do you put your groceries?
Where did you put your
No,
groceries?
but empty.
Well, I can't respond to that.
Because the groceries are empty of
But
inherent
emptiness is
existence
not empty.
also.
Yeah, emptiness is also empty.
It's not empty.
Yeah, it is
It's
empty.
empty.
Yeah, emptiness is also empty.
But in the same time, when you see emptiness of the car,
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
the relative existence as well.
Yeah, but losing the car is just an example.
Okay.
It's just the feeling
Okay.
that the car wasn't
Okay.
there. So I'm just trying to give an analogy.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good.
Okay. Don't get too clever on me.
No. This was in order to understand. I fell into the car.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Just hold back.
Okay.
Okay. Next one. Clear light. Clear light is taught only in highest yoga tantra because it comes from the experience of the yogis and yoginis who practice highest yoga tantra. It only manifests when all the wind energies of the body have dissolved in the central channel. It begins to manifest when the winds enter the central channel. After they enter the central channel, the next level is they stay or abide in the central channel. And eventually they dissolve in the central channel. When all the wind energies are dissolved in the central channel, the mind experiences clear light. Clear light is the ground zero of the subjective mind. It's still momentary, it's still continuum, but it has no content whatsoever and no concepts, not even subtle concepts. Before the clear light there are subtle concepts of white appearance, red increase, black near attainment, but when it reaches clear light, it's completely clear. And it's also a little luminous or radiant. So it's compared to the very beginning of dawn, in a clear sky, the very first light. It's a very soft light. And the mind of clear light is like that. It's something very subtle. There's like a subtle vibration of luminous energy. And that mind is very close to understanding emptiness. It's very easy for that mind to understand emptiness, if you're conscious. We experience the clear light at the time of death, and according to Kalachakra, we experience it other times too. We don't usually notice. But Kalachakra teaches we also experience it when we sneeze, when we yawn, when we have orgasm, when we faint, but very briefly. And whether or not we're conscious of it, I think, is doubtful. All of those experiences I just mentioned come with a sharp intake of the breath. When you yawn, you take in the breath. When you sneeze, there's an intake of breath. And this causes the wind to very briefly enter the central channel, according to the Kalachakra, and bring about an experience of clear light. The same with orgasm. It doesn't mean that the orgasm is a full experience of clear light, but it means that there is some similarity, a sharp intake of breath and some kind of experience of clarity. Let's just say that. But at death, especially if the death is a peaceful, slow death, then the winds gradually withdraw and eventually dissolve in the central channel, and for a period of time there is clear light. I mentioned the other day in Herzliya that when my mother passed away, for half an hour she was in the clear light. And so many ordinary people stay in the clear light for a while after the breath stops and after the heart stops. Now, in the practice of highest yoga tantra, such as Kalachakra, there are various yogic methods for bringing experience of the clear light. Okay, it requires a lot of preparation before we can do that. We need to practice the generation stage practices, and then this is part of the completion stage, which is, a more sort of advanced level of practice, but nevertheless, this exists, and these methods are taught, and if we work hard, then we should be able to practice those methods. But it's what we use the clear light for that is important. We use the clear light in order to realize emptiness. Okay? That's how it's used in the practice. Now, why do I call that one ground zero? Because it's the subjective mind when everything else is taken out, all the content, all the subtle concepts of white appearance, red increase and so forth, everything is taken out. And this is the very basic level of mind. In the Dzogchen practice, this is called Rigpa. Some of you probably heard about that. Sometimes translated as basic mind. Basic mind. In the Gelug tradition, we usually call it the fundamental, innate mind of clear light. Innate means we are born with it. Innate. Innate. Can someone translate?
Mulad.
Okay. It means that it's part of us from before we are born. We're born with it. But of course it's hidden from us. And this is the mind that has the beginningless continuum, and also endless. Even when we become enlightened, it just continues as the mind of Buddha. At the moment, it's covered in obscurations, and so we have to purify it. And when it's fully purified, we are enlightened. So the basis of enlightenment is already here. We don't need to bring something from outside. I mean, we need some practices and teachings from somebody else, but we just need to purify what is already here. Yeah?
In the sleep without dream, the stage of sleep without dream also.
That is not clear light. That is maybe similar to the black near attainment, but it's a darkness actually, and it's an obscuration. But when all those obscurations are removed, that one will become Dhammakaya, the mind of the Buddha, the sleep without dreams. In Kalachakra there are 4 levels of mind taught. The first one is the waking mind, which we're using now. The second one is the dreaming mind. The third one is the mind of deep sleep without dreams. And the fourth one is the clear light, or the mind of this. In Kalachakra we call it gnosis, or jnana.
Okay, is good.
So each one of these is more subtle than the previous one. But the one of deep sleep without dreams is not yet the clear light.
Newborn.
Yes,
Newborn.
newborn. So according to Kalachakra, when the consciousness first enters the seeds of the mother and father, for the very first moment the mind is completely pure. For the first moment, and the moment is very short. After that, it begins to become less pure. But when it's completely pure, it's just the clear light without any obscuration, according to Kalachakra.
But how it takes all our imprints, karmic imprints, if it's clear, if it's clean?
Good question. The clear light mind is always travelling with the very subtle wind. And the very subtle wind is the basis of all the winds. When we purify all the winds, then they can't affect it. But until then, the karmic winds, or at least the potential of the karmic winds, is coming with the very subtle wind. The mind always has the nature of clear light, but then even the mind usually is covered over by obscuration. But yeah, at this very first moment of the life, when the mind is completely pure, the potential for the karmic winds is with the very subtle wind. Because that's the basis of the winds. They all grow from there. Yeah, I understand.
It comes with the wind, our imprints, karmic imprints.
Yeah.
How do they come to this clear light mind?
No, they come with the wind,
It's the wind.
according to Kalachakra. But they do have the potential to generate afflictive emotion later. It comes through the agency of the karmic winds, according to Kalachakra. But even according to the ordinary teachings, these imprints are not physical, and they're also not mind. They're something else. They're just imprints, they're potentials. And they come into our mind as our life goes, according to the sutra explanation. So they're not always manifest. They're potential. So the question is, how can something be potential? It's like a seed. It doesn't have any energy until you activate it.
I have a very practical question.
Good.
You said that you have the experience of the clear light when you sneeze, when you yawn, when you have an orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
So is there like any practical things that you can do to be more in tune with it, or maybe expand it? Or something
Not at our stage. Then of course, if you're a very advanced yogic practitioner, then you can do some things, yeah. Because then you're also working in your meditation on these things. And then it can also affect you in the ordinary life. But at our stage, I'm just mentioning it, just to say, well, it does happen also in ordinary life, briefly.
So don't sneeze.
There's nothing you can do right now. No. In fact, don't try.
Maybe next.
You can also make a mess of yourself if you try to do some things which it's not time for. Yeah.
When you pure, when you said you need to pure it,
Yeah.
where you need to pure it? Because if the clear lights, it's the one without concepts and
Yeah.
all this. So where is the?
The clear light is already pure. However, it's covered over with obscurations. It's like a mirror that is dirty, and the mirror underneath is pure.
Yeah.
But you need to clean it.
But the one, where is the thing that we need to clean? Where is in? It's not in the pure.
No.
It's
It's-
covered. So where is in the
Where is it?
in the mind? Where are we like? It's,
Yeah.
it's the sat.
Okay.
No.
The example is given in one Kalachakra text of copper. Copper. Copper.
Yeah.
Copper has some impurities when you take it from the ground, and then you add some chemicals, and through the agency of those chemicals, the copper becomes completely pure, and it becomes pure copper and very bright and beautiful. Now, what is it that takes out the purities? That is the chemical agent. So in the analogy, our mind now is like the copper from the ground, full of impurities. But the purities are not inherent in the copper. And the impurities of our mind are not inherent in the mind, but we need some agent to remove the impurities. And the agent is our practice.
Okay, so it is like in the clear mind, like
It's mixed with it.
it's mixed with.
It's kind of
Yeah.
mixed with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The clear light is separated.
Sorry, I can't hear if you
Clear
talk.
light
Yeah.
and the emptiness are interconnected, right? You
They were
cannot-
easy.
Interconnected.
Interconnected. You cannot really have a realization of emptiness without clear light.
Oh yeah, you can, yeah. You can realize emptiness with the gross mind, with the ordinary mind, like we have now. Yeah, you can. And it's, for example, the clear light mind is only relevant when you're practicing highest yoga tantra. But there are practitioners who realize emptiness who are not practicing highest yoga tantra. They can realize emptiness and become free from suffering.
And can you get to the clear light without realizing emptiness?
Well, you experience the clear light when you die, but you're not really conscious.
No.
Oh, without realizing emptiness?
Yeah.
Maybe. But it's the emptiness that purifies it. So it's really quite kind of, for a practitioner, we should really try to work on them both.
It's true that it should be interconnected.
Well, I'm telling you as much as I can tell you. Otherwise you have to just find out. Yes? Why are they obstacles? This is why is the white appearance, the red increase, and the black near attainment obstacles? Because they're not yet the clear light. They're subtle obscurations, limiting us from the purest non-conceptual level of mind.
What's the danger of them?
I didn't say there was a danger.
The statement
That we need to go beyond that in order to have the pure light, pure clear light.
we
You
walk anyway.
know.
We go through them anyway.
Death, yeah, but in practice it takes a lot of work. There's two kinds of clear light. One is coming naturally at the time of death, which most people aren't conscious of, but some people may experience it for a while and then they move on. But there's also the one that comes through the practice. That is what the Kalachakra practice is aimed to do.
But if there are stages that like showing us that we are real, that we are, then they have some benefit.
Don't they?
They must have some benefit. Because if you see yourself in the black and appearance, you know, oh, I have to pay attention. It's in the it's not like there are signs.
They're just stages of experience. I don't think they have any benefit in themselves. But I never heard that anyway.
Why you have to learn it before? So you will be aware, okay, I'm getting real, so you will not pass through the light and not pay attention. You already prepared yourself.
Yeah, that helps, yeah. If you meditate on those stages and become aware of them, it's helpful, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
It's a benefit.
Okay. Okay. Fine. How are we doing for time? Push to it. Oh yeah, okay. It's nearly time for the meditation. Yeah, okay, one more.
The Buddha's mind,
Yes.
you said he is continuing, isn't it? I understood.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get any imprints anymore?
No.
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 Okay, so what it means continuing?
It continuing for the sake of all beings.
Benefiting.
All beings still exist in suffering, so the Buddha continues for their sake. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I pleased you.
One more.
Enjoying it.
Yes.
You said that you took your mother as example that she stayed with the clear light after she stopped breathing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So who sees the clear lights if the brain doesn't see it anymore? I mean, the brain doesn't work. I mean,
Oh my
who
gosh.
sees?
You mean Itzik, you think that the mind only depends on the brain?
No, but the mind,
The mind sees it.
another mind.
No.
Conscious?
No, the consciousness doesn't only depend on the brain.
Yeah.
You agree?
No, I don't completely agree because I think
That's the point.
the more complicated things is the connection with the mind and the brain. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Well, what we're saying here, and you don't have to accept it, but what we're saying here is that the mind can exist without the brain.
Okay, and it can see who see the light?
It can have experience without the medium of the brain. That is what we're saying here. Okay. But at a very subtle level, because the brain is doing all the complicated bit. But we left the complications behind. Now we're in very, very subtle level. Okay.
But how did you see it? How do you know that she was? How do you know that she was
Okay.
in the red, in the white light? Clear light.
Okay. After the breath stopped and the heart stopped, it felt to me that she's still there. There's some still life there. There's still some subjectivity, some awareness still there. And actually that awareness is so pure that the whole room is filled with it. It's really something special. Other people have experienced this, so it's not just me. And then I had to leave, and the hospital staff, they did their job. And when I came back, the body was lying there. It's just a dead body. There's nothing there. You can see. And this is not just my experience. Many people have experienced that. So that's how I know.
And
Also
those people.
said there was a very happy energy.
Yeah, blissful feeling in the room. The most blissful feeling that my mother ever had in her whole life was there. I'm sure.
Wow.
There's something special.
Just another question. You, as somebody who explores, who beholds, have, I guess,
Not much.
a high level of awareness, but the others probably don't.
Actually, I don't claim anything special, really. I'm doing my best to practice what I'm taught, but that's it. I'm not very good.
Okay, but others who don't practice,
Yeah.
also feel it. Okay, and recognize it.
I think sometimes they can. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but you know, if you're tuned in and aware, I think sometimes people say, once they hear this explanation, they say, oh yes, I experienced it, but it was before they heard the explanation.
Okay.
So I think some people do. Depends on the circumstances. It has to be a relatively peaceful death.
Nice.
We're going to stop the questions soon, but this is the last one.
You say that you felt your mother had this experience half an hour in this subtle level, but this subtle level is the most important one for the consciousness. So she can take it as a big benefit to her next life, maybe not.
It's hard to know. Usually we say, if somebody's a practitioner, definitely it's helpful. Because at that time they're conscious. And they can meditate on emptiness and purify lots of obscurations. But for someone who's not a practitioner, like my mother, I very much doubt it. I think it was just a period of peacefulness, which is nice, but when she left, I'm sorry to say, I'm not confident that she continued to have peaceful experience. I mean, she had a lot of disturbance in her life, and I'm sorry to say, I'm sure she took some of the imprints of that with her. And it makes me sad actually to think about what's happening to her now, so I don't know. But I don't have any illusions that she's in some happy place right now, to be honest. I pray for her. I'm going to stop the questions.
So please take a few breaths that you bring your awareness to your breath fully.
We would like to hear your calm voice.
Okay.
Louder.
A bit louder. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, but I'll try again. So just be at one with your breathing. Because it's important we do this meditation with a very calm mind. Because as we go through the stages that happen at death, I'd like you to imagine that in fact it is your death, but it's completely peaceful. There's no anxiety, there's no fear. And you are a practitioner so that you wish to be as alert as possible during this process, to recognize what's happening. Because in the death process, our mind naturally becomes more and more subtle. And in the meditation I will mention the two side channels and the central channel. These are the subtle energy channels in our body. We have 72,000 channels in our body, but plus these three. But these three main ones, we have a central channel and a right and a left channel. And gradually through the death process, first all the winds come into the two side channels, and normally the side channels are squeezing the central channel. They also wrap around the central channel at certain points. But in this process, by bringing the winds in, and bringing the wind energy into the central channel, we loosen these knots. So these more subtle experiences can happen as the winds come gradually into the central channel. So imagine that it is time for your death, and you are completely at peace. Your body is growing weaker. And the winds that support the consciousness of the earth element, connected to the earth element, become less manifest. So our consciousness of the earth element is weaker. And we have a sense of the strength leaving our body. Our sight becomes quite unclear until one can't open one's eyes. And we have an experience, a vision, but not out there, but more or less an experience of a shimmering mirage. Just like when we see on a hot road, we see it looks like there's water ahead, a shimmering mirage, silver blue. And then the winds connected to the consciousness relating to the water element decrease and become less manifest, so the water element becomes less manifest. We have an experience of our mouth drying and feeling the fluids in our body are drying up. We no longer distinguish between the feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. We no longer hear even the sounds that sometimes, like the hum in our ear, even that stops. And we have an inner vision, an inner experience of thick smoke, puffs of smoke in a thick, smoky environment. And then the fire element becomes less manifest. The winds that support the consciousness of the fire element weaken, and it's no longer as manifest as previously. The heat in our body we feel has become less. Can't remember the names of close persons. We can't discriminate, discern things. We can't smell. And the experience that we have as an inner vision is like sparks, just like sometimes when you have a fire, you're sitting around a fire and there are many sparks just above the flames. And then the winds connected to the consciousness of the wind element become less manifest. We're no longer conscious or aware of external things. We've lost all ability to consider these. All our worldly purposes and memories are faded. We can't experience taste or different textures like smooth or rough. And we have an inner vision of a flame, like a flame, just about to go out. It becomes a little bit blue, a little bit red, just a tiny flame. So the experience is something like this, as again, not just a vision out there, but an experience. A dim red-blue light. Just like a candle flame going out. And this is when our ordinary breath stops. But there is still this subtle winds and energy in the body. So it's not the moment of death. Because at this point, the winds that are in the right and left channel come and enter the central channel through the crown of our head. So these are the winds that are above the heart. They come up through the side channels, come down through the crown, and then descend towards our heart. And our experience is a very clear vacuity, a white light, like the brightness of the moon in a clear autumn sky. It's the mind of white appearance. Through the force of the winds coming through down into the central channel, there's a white drop at the crown that melts and comes down to rest above the heart chakra. Perhaps I should say at the heart chakra, and above the red and white drop that we call the indestructible drop that we've had since conception. And while this is happening, we have this experience of this white appearance. It's a very subtle mind, without gross conceptions. And then the winds that were in the right and left channels below the heart descend and come up through the lower chakras into the central channel. And as they do so, they drop, the red drop that was at the navel comes up to rest just below the bottom half of the indestructible drop at the heart that contains the very subtle wind and the very subtle mind. And as this process happens, and as the red drop ascends, we have the experience of the mind of red increase. A very vivid red, dark red appearance. experience the vividness and also the subtlety of this mind is very clear. So all the upper and lower winds inside the central channel have gathered at the heart. And through the force of this, the knots that I explained have all loosened around the central channel. And the white drop that's above and the red drop that's below meet in the middle of the white and red indestructible drop that's in the centre of the central channel at the heart. And due to these three all meeting, we have the experience of black near attainment. So this is like a black vision, a black light vision, which first of all we see the darkness, we know we can apprehend it, but then we fall unconscious. And all the winds dissolve into the very subtle, life-bearing wind at the indestructible drop at the heart. So all other minds and winds have now ceased. And we have the experience of the clear light. It's very clear, free of all appearances. It's the mind of clear light of death. And if we have been practicing as some yogis do throughout our lifetime, at this moment we can place this clear light mind on the object of emptiness. The clear light mind abides without any movement. And then there's a mere quiver. And at this point, the very subtle wind and mind leave the open drop of the white and red drop at the heart and pass outside. And this is the beginning of the next life in the intermediate state or bardo state. And the very same visions we've had previously happen in reverse order. So we would go back to the black near attainment, the red increase, the white appearance, the butter lamp going out, the sparks, the smoke, and the mirage, at which point we would have taken our next rebirth in an intermediate state. So now gently relax your concentration.